We believe that President Trump has violated the Constitution, and we've introduced 5 articles of impeachment. The first is obstruction of justice, which deals with Mr. Comey's firing. The second is a violation of the Constitution's foreign emolument clause, which deals with monies he's taken from foreign powers without the consent of Congress. The third is a violation of the domestic emoluments clause, which deals with monies he's made from the United States and as personal businesses beyond that of his salary, which is also forbidden by our Constitution. The fourth is undermining our federal judiciary, and the fifth is undermining freedom of the press. These are progressive actions he's taken over a period of time against the press and against the judiciary, with positive actions to cap off a pattern of behavior, belittling and questioning these institutions that are so important for our democracy. The judiciary obviously is in the Constitution and an equal branch of government. The press is not in the Constitution, but freedom of press is. And he's threatened licenses of broadcast stations, so-called fake news, and other actions that hurt our democracy. They definitely hurt our democracy. They're fundamental parts of it. So we're calling upon the House to begin impeachment hearings immediately. It's not a call for a vote, it's a call for hearings. I don't expect the House Judiciary Committee, which is operated like a branch of the administration, to take up hearings. It's their responsibility, in my opinion, and I believe Congressman Gutierrez's and our other colleagues, to have hearings. But of the 4 committees that have jurisdiction, House and Senate Intelligence and House and Senate Judiciary, the House Judiciary, which is the particular committee which would have responsibility for bringing impeachment charges through the Constitution. Al, come join us, please. Has that responsibility, and of which I sit as the ranking member on the Constitution Subcommittee, has not taken any action whatsoever or had any hearings whatsoever. And because of that, it's even more important that Congressman Gutierrez, who's a member of this committee, and myself bring this impeachment article for failure of our chairman to even have hearings. If we don't have hearings, which we don't expect, we will be holding briefings and participating in briefings on these particular charges to let people know what's going on as we experience them, that the Constitution is being violated, that our democracy is being threatened, and to bring these charges to light in the form of briefings with experts who will help us explain it to the American people. Some people may say, why in light of the investigation of Bob Mueller? We support Bob Mueller's investigation, but he's looking at criminal charges. And that can or may not be an impeachable offense. More likely than not, it will be. We think he's going to come up with things, but that's for him, and it's going to take some time. There's no reason why we don't start now with definite violations of our Constitution and threats to our democracy. There are already sufficient facts in the public record to warrant this start of impeachment proceedings in Congress, and given the magnitude of the constitutional crisis, there's no reason for delay. With regard to obstruction, we know President Trump fired FBI Director Comey while the Bureau was investigating potential collusion with Russia and the Trump campaign, and the President has already admitted on national television that he had the Russia investigation on his mind when he fired Director Comey. We already know that Donald Trump Jr. met with a Russian attorney who offered to provide damaging evidence on Hillary Clinton as part of Russian government's efforts to help his father's campaign. These facts are uncontested. They are similarly clear-cut facts with regard to the foreign and domestic emoluments clauses. You just have to go to the Trump Hotel, the Trump Tower, see what the Saudis have paid, what other foreign governments have paid, what the Secret Service is paying, what people pay to stay at Mar-a-Lago, and other expenses that we're paying right now. And it's because President Trump, unlike any president in recent history, has not released his taxes and has not put his ownership of assets into a blind trust. The framers of our Constitution wisely prohibited presidents from accepting the payments that have been made, such as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia paying $270,000 to the Trump International Hotel as part of their lobbying effort. And the Embassy of Kuwait held an event there spending, give or take, $50,000. Harry Truman didn't do it. President Eisenhower didn't do it. The Bushes didn't do it. Nobody's done it. Nobody benefits financially, directly, as they are President of the United States. It demeans the office, it demeans the country, it demeans the Constitution. President Trump has repeated visits to Trump-branded properties, which he retains an ownership interest, and that has caused the federal government to spend money there. As I've mentioned, Secret Service golf carts at Mar-a-Lago, lodging in Mar-a-Lago. In Hawaii, he couldn't help but say that the golf tournament or maybe it was Korea, the golf tournament where it was won by a Korean was at his golf club. There's a well-established record of President Trump with regards to undermining the independence of the judiciary, pardoning Sheriff Arpaio is part of that destruction of the judicial process, and the so-called judges. Before I yield to Mr. Gutierrez, I said after Charlottesville I was going to bring impeachment charges. I've waited 3 months to work the House, find other people who would support this. There are 5 others who will be on the resolution. There are others who have told me they will be there soon. They wanted to be there. Also wanted to perfect the resolution. We've worked with scholars. I want to thank my staff, Mr. Wiseman, my chief of staff, Ms. Dillahay, and everybody else who's worked on this, and members of the committee who are not here, and none of the committee who worked with it to make it an article that's worthy of the Judiciary Committee and of an article of impeachment, which is an important process. What happened at Charlottesville burned me as I saw Klansmen and neo-Nazis march and the President not respond in the manner which the President of the United States should in looking out and protecting people of my faith and people of my district, African Americans, who were being threatened with their very liberty. Continually, he has gone on with other offenses. It's important that we not let the failure of the Republicans to stop us from doing what is right, what is our charge in the Constitution, what is our duty to bring impeachment when it occurs, and to stand up for the Constitution and American values. I'd like to recognize Representative Luis Gutierrez with great appreciation. He'll recognize Representative Green. He'll represent the next person that comes.
Well, Congressman Cohen, thank you. I have to say I enjoy working with you on the Judiciary Committee, and it gives me great honor to co-sponsor these articles of impeachment. Let me put this in context. There are many reasons why I think the president is an awful president, an awful person. But not all of those reasons rise to the level of impeaching a sitting president. We are not seeking his impeachment because of what he did before he was president. For example, he proudly bragged about sexually assaulting women. And he has been linked to such a long list of sexually inappropriate conduct that I think it is fair to conclude that he is hostile to women in general. We are not seeking to impeach him because of the growing racial and ethnic tension in this country that, in my opinion, this president knowingly and willingly activates by playing up racial hatred and bias, and he thrives on it. He didn't denounce Nazi marches and racism because he knows he benefits from them. I'm not joining this effort because of his sustained anti-Latino bias. He started his campaign by calling Mexican immigrants murderers and rapists. He doesn't think that an American-born judge in Indiana with a Spanish-sounding last name is legitimate, just as he does not believe that Latinos voting is legitimate. And I think he is taking the country in exactly the wrong direction on immigration by taking documented immigrants, those legally in this country, and making them undocumented so that he can deport them. I think the Muslim ban and ending DACA are fundamentally hurtful and harmful to the United States and our values as a nation. I could probably name up another dozen examples how President Trump is doing deep, permanent damage to the United States and all of our people by taking away health care, erasing environmental protections, rolling back protections for the LGBTQ community and working people and immigrants. And God knows, I think, what he is doing or not doing on Puerto Rico is deeply offensive. However, what elevates certain actions to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors are the following examples. President Trump asked the Vice President and others to leave the room, including the Attorney General, to leave the room so that he could have a private, one-on-one conversation with FBI Director Jim Comey to tell him to back off on the Russian investigation. You do not ask witnesses to leave the room unless you know you are committing a crime, and in this case, it was clearly obstruction of justice. The president once said, I'm going to quote, "It is very possible that I could be the first presidential candidate to run and make money on it." And he's kept his word on that promise by continuing to line his pockets with money and to drive business to his brands using the public office of the presidency. That is not right, that is not illegal, and he should be impeached for it. I think the ongoing investigations will uncover even more instances where the president has violated the law and violated the public trust. And I'm glad those investigations are still moving forward, despite, in some instances, attempts by the president to slow them down or derail them. This is not a substitute, what we are doing here today, being led by Congressman Cohen, is not a substitute for the investigations that should and will go forward. But the Congress needs to get started. The U.S. Congress, and specifically the Judiciary Committee, on which I sit with Steve Cohen, is the place where impeachment starts, and if we fail to file these articles of impeachment, we would be failing to do our jobs. Estamos aquí porque creemos que el presidente fundamentalmente ha sido criminal en sus acciones, obstruyendo investigaciones y lucrándose personalmente de ganancias personales como presidente de los Estados Unidos. Y nosotros creemos que se debe empezar el proceso de removerlo como presidente de los Estados Unidos de América. Y es la responsabilidad del Comité de lo Jurídico, en el cual el congresista Cohen y yo servimos, de iniciar ese proceso con audiencias públicas. Queremos audiencias públicas. No obstante, que continúen las investigaciones, aunque el presidente lo ha tratado de oscurecer. Nosotros queremos traer claridad y luz. And with that, I almost went straight to Spanish, Congressman Green. And with
Arriba, amigo.
Arriba. And with that, Congressman Al Green, our good friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your kind words. And I'd like to thank Mr. Cohen for taking us another step closer to impeachment. Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution of the United States of America was drafted for a time such as this and a president such as Trump. It was drafted because there were persons who understood that you could have a runaway presidency. And because they understood this, they also knew that what the president might do in the process of running away, as it were, might not be criminal. This is why the term misdemeanors, when properly defined, means misdeeds. Misdeeds. It does not mean a crime. The current definition of it, if explored, will reveal that misdemeanors are misdeeds. This president has committed misdeeds that merit impeachment. There will be many thoughts as to which direction impeachment should take. I commend Mr. Cohen for what he's doing with his articles of impeachment that I'm signing on to, so I will call them our articles of impeachment. I intend to support these articles of impeachment. I think it's appropriate that the Judiciary Committee do its job. The Judiciary Committee should not assume that we can outsource investigations to other committees, to independent agencies. While I do agree with the investigations that are taking place, especially the investigation that is being taken place by Mr. Mueller, I do agree with it. I don't believe that we should allow the public to have the belief that the Judiciary Committee has no responsibility. It does. And I am grateful to you, Mr. Cohen, for calling this to the attention not only of the committee, but of the country. People need to understand that the Judiciary Committee really is a place where impeachment can originate. It can also originate with any one of the 435 members of Congress. Any one of the members can bring articles of impeachment before the Congress. Any one of the members can have those articles acted upon by the Congress. I support what Mr. Cohen is doing, and I will continue to move forward with impeachment as well. Finally, this, Mr. Cohen, there are people who are going to see what you're doing as another step. I see it as an act of courage. I see it as an act of patriotism. I believe this is a most patriotic thing that you and the members who are signing on to this resolution are doing. And I believe that those who will judge us properly have not been born yet. I believe that those who will look back through the vista of time at this time will conclude that there were some people who refused to allow a president to continue to bring shame, to continue to dishonor the office. They refused to allow it to continue, and because they refused, they took appropriate action. I compliment you for what you've done. I thank all of the other members who are associated with this endeavor, and I will now yield to the gentleman from New York who has done a stellar job in a very short period of time here in the Congress of the United States of America.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Green, Congressman Cohen, and Gutierrez. I am new in Congress, and so I thought very deep and hard about this step because I'm an American, and I may be new in Congress, but I'm very grateful to the United States of America for the opportunities that it has provided for me and my family and the district that I have the privilege to represent. So I went really deep into my soul and went through this methodically to ensure that what I was doing was the right thing, that the calling that I felt from deep in my soul was the right road to take. And the specifics of these articles were discussed by its author, Congressman Cohen. But I want to stress today that the President, Donald Trump, is a threat to our national security, and we have become, across the world, a laughingstock. And that hurts me very deeply as an American. But that's not enough to proceed in what we're doing today. We are here today to take a formal stand, a call for his impeachment in the name of our constituencies. Everywhere I go in my district, whether it's Harlem or East Harlem or Washington Heights or the Bronx, people are calling for this. This is not a call in a vacuum. There is a real sentiment in the nation for this to begin. And so I commend Congressman Cohen for taking this courageous step in moving forward in these articles of impeachment. Now, I remember as a young college student how I raced home from school to tape with my cassette when President Nixon was leaving the White House. It was a crucial moment for America. It's a deep, soul-searching moment for our nation. When a president has to step down, it's not a good thing. It's not a nice thing. But our nation is a strong nation. It's a nation of laws and institutions, and we must protect that, Congressman Cohen. And this is the beginning. This is the first step in that direction. nearly every month that President Trump has served in office, Americans have witnessed some sort of violation of our values, our civil liberties, and access to opportunities, and he has broken the law. And that's what these articles of impeachment are about. And so whether it is that he obstructed justice or violated the Constitution or undermined the independence of our judicial system and the freedom of view, the press, these are critical and serious violations that he has committed. And he should not be held to a different standard than any other American. That is the backbone of our nation. And so I'm here to join my colleagues in support of this effort. This is just the beginning. I know that there is a very important investigation going on parallel to this. But we must assume, we must not abdicate our responsibility as duly elected members of Congress because another branch of government, the justice system, has begun their own actions. We must step up to the plate. This is the first inning of this 9-inning game. And I will be by the side of my colleagues moving forward to respond to the calls from my constituents that they want this president impeached. Estoy aquí para apoyar esta iniciativa que busca la destitución de un presidente que obviamente ha violentado las leyes. Y comenzamos el proceso de destitución de este presidente hoy. Es el primer paso. Me uno al congresista Cohen y a los colegas que están aquí para movernos hacia adelante y asegurar que nuestra nación sea protegida. Gracias.
I want to thank my colleagues for being with me. We're not just the four amigos. There's also Ms. Fudge of Ohio and Mr. Yarmouth of Kentucky who will be on the resolution. There may be others immediately or soon thereafter, and now we'd like to respond to any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Mr. Cohen, is it fair to say, though, that the vast majority of members of your caucus think this is premature and don't want anything to do with it?
Well, I can't speak for necessarily the vast majority of my caucus. I've spoken to a lot of members. There are, I'd say, at least a dozen other members that were very close to signing on, wanted to, but I think we're at political concerns with maybe within the legislative political body. There's some others who might think that they just want Mr. Trump to hang himself and think that we don't need to help him. But I think there are a great number of Democrats who think that there have been impeachable offenses. I think the majority of Democrats think that, and I know that there are Republicans who think that too. But they are constrained, I think, by the strong Trump voters in their primary electoral system. Lady. Woman.
Natalie Anderson, The Wall Street Journal. Tom Steyer has a national advertising campaign right now calling for, saying it's time to impeach the president. Have you talked to Mr. Steyer at all? Do you think this campaign helps Democrats, or some would say it hurts Democrats' effort to take the House in 2018?
I talked to Mr. Steyer for just a few minutes just to let him know that I had these articles of impeachment in mind since August the 17th in Charlottesville, and that I was seeking out co-sponsors, and I'm proud to have the sponsors I have. I think that this will not hurt the Democrats in 2018. In fact, I think it'll help the Democrats. I think polling indicates that the Trump supporters came out in larger numbers, even in Virginia, than did the Clinton supporters. I think that the Democrats' base needs to be activated, and the Democratic base needs to know there are members of Congress who are willing to stand up against this president and bring impeachment charges and continue to bring light to illegal conduct that's taking place and threatening our country. So I think the base is important. I think that showing what this president has done that's illegal and pointing out with briefings what emoluments are, the violations that he's participated in or carried out, and we'll do that through briefings, will help edify to the public, to the errors of this administration. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Let me just say this. First of all, this is a process, and most of you follow Congress very, very closely. I made sure that I left all the leashes back home 25 years ago when I joined the Congress of the United States, because I came here to be an independent member of the House of Representatives and to represent the people of the 4th Congressional District, and not, some back rooms of Washington, D.C. So I see a crime, and I have a responsibility to dial 911 immediately. I don't call and try to reach consensus with all my neighbors and all my friends and those that opinion I might seek out. I see a crime, I dial the number, I call the police, I activate an investigation. Every one of you here this morning, every member, every journalist here knows that the President of the United States asked the Attorney General, his son-in-law, and the Vice President to leave the room. Now, why do you ask 3 people, one of which is the Chief Enforcement Officer of the United States, to leave a room unless you're going to commit a crime? And then what do you ask? You ask the Director of the FBI to stop an investigation into your national security advisor. That's obstruction of justice. If any one of us had done something like that, the grand jury would have already been called. And that is what Cohen and I on the Judiciary Committee are. We're like the grand jury. So we want to call the witnesses forward. We want to hear their testimony. And if the grand jury at the end of it agrees with our articles of impeachment, they should be sent over to the Senate for a trial. But that's the way this works. So it's within the framework of the Constitution that we are acting. And I think the people of my congressional district, which are paramount to me, they're the leaders. They're the ones that dictate the decisions that I make and the actions I undertake.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Cohen, have you spoken to Leader Pelosi or any other members of Democratic leadership about this? What did they tell you? Are they on board with it?
No, it'd be a stretch to say they were on board. No, I've spoken to Leader Pelosi. I mentioned let her know we were having this conference through one of her staff members. She was on the floor yesterday. I called her immediately after Charlottesville, and I said, I know you're not for this, but I can't stand by when he allows Klansmen and neo-Nazis to demonstrate as they did and say, blood, Jews will not take our jobs, have tiki torches. I said, I can't do this. And she understands me, and I think she'll understand each of us.
May I
Sure, Al,
something,
please.
Thank you. I love my country. That's why I'm here today. And this really is not about Democrats. It's about democracy. It's about government of the people, by the people, for the people. It's not about Republicans. It's about the republic. And what Franklin said, and what has been quoted by Mr. Cohen in his release, you have a republic if you can keep it. This is about keeping the republic. So you really have to elevate this above the politics that will consume a good many people. And let this be about our country and love of country. Mr. Cohen mentioned the Klans persons, the neo-Nazis, the haters. We cannot allow a president to perpetuate hate. You can't hide hate. You have to confront hate. You have to take it on. Hate is something that I refuse to accept, and I will not acquiesce to it. I'm going to stand up against it, and I'm going to speak out. And my hope is that this Congress will send a loud message to the rest of the world, connoting that hate won't be tolerated in this great country, especially by the person who happens to be the commander-in-chief. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
If not, thank you very much, and I thank my colleagues, and I thank the other colleagues that signed on, and God bless the United States of America.
Very well.
We didn't make it.
I appreciated that. I was wondering.